I clutched the printed divorce agreement, standing at the door of the integrity law firm, my fingertips turning slightly white from the grip. This was already the fifth firm I had contacted. The first four either refused to admit me at all or politely gave me a few perfunctory lines, saying things like, Mr. Goose's side is something we can't offend, or MS Jang, maybe you should think it over again. Opening the glass door, the air inside the law firm felt a bit oppressive. The receptionist girl spotted me, a trace of embarrassment flickering in her eyes. After hesitating for a long moment, she stepped forward and asked softly, Excuse me, are you a mess? Jiang Shuyan. I nodded. Yes, me. I have an appointment with lawyer Jiang. The receptionist sighed and pointed to the conference room next door. Lawyer Jiang is inside waiting for you. But Ms. Jiang, if you're here about a divorce, perhaps. I didn't wait for her to finish speaking and walked straight toward the reception room. When I pushed the door open, a man in his 40s, Lawyer Jiang, was sitting inside. He looked up at my entrance with no trace of a smile. Instead, his brows were knitted, a look as if facing a formidable foe. I had just sat down and hadn't had a chance to speak when Lawyer Jiang waved his hand first and spoke in a grave tone. And Miss Jiang, I know about your matters. It's not that I won't help you. It's just that we really can't afford to offend the Gu Group. I placed the divorce agreement on the table and pushed it in front of him. Lawyer Jiang, I just want to find a lawyer to help me go through the divorce process. Gu Jingqin cheated during the marriage. I have evidence, and I'm in the right in this divorce case. Lawyer Jean glanced at the agreement on the table, then quickly looked away, picked up the glass of water on the table, and took a sip before slowly saying, And what if you're right, Ms. Jiang? You may not be aware of Gu's influence. The legal department of Gu Group sent notices to all our law firms yesterday, explicitly stating that anyone who takes her case will face all-out pressure from us, not only causing us to lose all business related to Gu, but also making it impossible for us to survive in this industry. She paused, her tone carrying a hint of helplessness. I have a family to support, a law firm with dozens of people to feed. I really can't let this one case ruin everyone's livelihoods. Miss Jiang, I advise you to try talking to Mr. Gu again. After all, it's a marriage. There's no need to push it to such a dead end. Talk it through properly. I sneered inwardly. If Gu Jingqin were willing to talk things through, he wouldn't let his mother Lud Swan come to my parents' house to make trouble every day, nor would he let the mistress by Min Gao openly appear in our marital home. At that moment, my phone suddenly rang, the screen flashing with the name Luan. I frowned and pressed the answer button. Lud Swan-on's sharp voice shot out from the phone, so arrogant that it could be felt even through the receiver. Jiang Shuyan, are you looking for a lawyer again? Let me tell you, don't waste your effort. Jing has already made his stance clear, and in the entire city, there isn't a single lawyer willing to take your case. I leaned back in the chair. My tone calmed Jingqin, and I can't go on like this anymore. Divorce is inevitable. Is this harassment you're doing interesting at all? Interesting. Lu Swan sneered. Jiang Shuyan, let me tell you, you can't divorce my son. Do you think once you leave Jingqin, you can live a good life now? If Jingqin hadn't given you money to spend in the status of Mrs. Gu, you would be nothing, and it's better than clinging to a cheating man. I replied coldly. What's wrong with cheating? Luden's voice sharpened further. It's normal for men to go out and flirt. Man Gao is more sensible than you and can give our Gu family a big fat boy. What about you? 3 years after marriage, not a single movement in your belly. We've been nice not to drive you out of the Gu family, and you still dare to talk about divorce. So you're determined not to let me divorce. I asked, not that I won't let you divorce, but that no one dares help you divorce. Luan said triumphantly, Let me tell you, Jiang Suyen, sensible people should hurry back to apologize to Jingqin and properly take care of Mingyao. Maybe Jingqin will let you continue to be Mrs. Gu. Otherwise, you'll not only fail to divorce, but your mother's family will be unlucky as well. Arga family can tidy up a small Jiang family with ease. Right, threats to me are one thing, but dare to threaten my mother's family. I gripped the table so hard that my nails dug into my palms. Yet my face remained expressionless. Lichuan, you'd better remember what you said today. My tone was icy. I Jiang Shuyan will divorce. No one can stop me. Didn't you say no one dared take my case? It's fine. I'll handle it myself. Are you coming yourself? Lud Swan seemed to hear a huge joke. Jiang Shuyan, stop bragging here. Without a lawyer, you can't even enter the court. I want to see how you will divorce on your own. After speaking, Lud Swan directly hung up the phone, and the busy tone beep, beep, beep ring from the receiver. Lawyer Jiang stood by listening clearly, his face full of worry. Ms. Jiang, don't act on impulse. Mrs. Gu is right without a lawyer. The divorce case can't proceed at all, and if you really make things too hostile with Gu family, they might really go after your maternal family. I picked up the divorce agreement on the table, carefully folded it, and put it into my personal bag. Then I looked up at Lawyer Zhang, a cold smile curling at the corner of my mouth. Lawyer Zhang, thank you for seeing me today. As for Gu family's threats, you don't need to worry. I won't implicate you. Having said that, I stood up and left. Just as I reached the entrance of the law firm, my phone rang again. This time, it was Guing Chin. I pressed the answer button, and before I could speak, Guing's voice came through low and threatening. Shuan, stop causing trouble. Go home obediently. I can pretend what happened before never occurred. If you go to a lawyer again, don't blame me for being rude to the Jiang family. Guing. I paused, looking at the crowd flowing along the street, my tone frighteningly calm. You think you can trap me with the Guan? You think threatening my maternal family will make me compromise? Isn't it so? Gwyn snorted coldly. Jiang Shuyan, face the reality. You can't live without me, and you can't live without the missus. Gu identity. Without me, you're nothing. I'm nothing. I laughed, a tinge of sarcasm in the laughter. Ginang, well, see in the court hearing 3 days from now. I'll let you know who is truly in control of the situation. A court hearing. Gwyn Chong was stunned for a moment, then sneered. If you can't even find a lawyer, how will you hold court? Jiang Shuyan, don't deceive yourself here. I tell you, without my consent, you'll never be able to divorce in this lifetime. Is that so? I spoke with a calm tone. Then just wait and see. After finishing, I hung up the phone directly, tucked the phone into my bag, and looked up at the courthouse building not far away. The sun spilled over the glass curtain wall of the building, reflecting a dazzling light. Leaving Integrity Law Firm, I did not go back to that so-called Gu family, but instead went to the bank first to confirm that all my assets under my name were safe. Gu Jingqin thought he could kink my financial source and make me bow, but he forgot that I, Jiang Shuyan, had never relied on him for support after handling these trivial things. It was already dusk. I hailed a taxi and gave the address of Guam Villa. It wasn't because I wanted to go back to see their faces, but because I still had some important personal documents and certificates left there that must be retrieved. After all, the court would open in 3 days, and these things were indispensable. The taxi stopped at the gate of the Gu family villa. The familiar European-style building exuded a chilly luxury in the night. I used to think this was home. Now it seems to be the nest where Guing Chin and that woman fraternized. I pulled out the key, gently inserted it into the lock, and as I turned it, I heard a woman's alluring laughter coming from the villa, along with loose Wei-Yin's hypocritical chords of agreement. My steps paused for a moment. Then I pushed the door open with an impassive face. The scene in the living room instantly turned my stomach with a churn. Guing was howling on the sofa, and a woman wearing my favorite silk nightgown was snuggling in his arms, holding a grape and feeding it to his mouth. That woman was Bai Mingao, and Lud Swan sat on the single sofa nearby, her eyes full of satisfaction as she watched the two of them, peeling an orange in her hand and occasionally passing one to Bai Mingao. Upon hearing the door open, the three in the living room looked over at the same time. Bai Mingao, seeing me, not only showed no trace of panic, but even leaned into Gujing's arms, her lips curling into a provocative smile. Luduan frowned. speaking impatiently. Jiang Shuyan, what are you back for? Weren't you busy looking for a lawyer to divorce? What? Can TT find a lawyer and came back to beg Jingqin. Guing pushed Bai Mao away from his chest, stood up, his face showing a hint of displeasure. Didn't I tell you not to make trouble? Why are you back again? I ignored their attitude, my gaze fixed on the silk night gown White Mao was wearing, and my tone was icy. White Mao, what you're wearing is my clothes. White Mao lowered her head to look at her clothes, then raised her eyes to look at me, giggling softly. Sister, isn't it just a piece of clothing? Jing Chan said, you don't TT like it. Let me wear it. Besides, Jing Qin likes me in this style. Who are you to interfere? My stuff. Of course, I have a say. I stepped forward 2 more steps, my gaze sweeping the living room. I came back to take my things, take them and leave. Not delaying your family of 3 reunions. Who told you we're a family of 3? Lud Swan suddenly stood up, pointing at my nose and scolding. Jiang Shuyan, don't put on airs. If it weren't for your incapable belly, would Jing Qin be able to find Minga? Mao is now carrying our Gu family seed. She'll be the Gu family's young madam in the future. If you have any sense, you'd better get lost. Don't crowd here. Pregnant with Gu's family, I sneered inwardly, but kept my expression calm, quietly taking out my phone and pressing the recording button. Lud Swan's speech must be supported by evidence. Whether Bingao is pregnant or not can't be determined by your words alone. I spoke in a steady tone. Moreover, this is my ing, Guing's marital home. If I want to come back, I will. If I want to leave, I will. It's none of your business to boss me around here. How dare you talk to me like that? Luan's face turned pale from my rebuttal. She stepped forward to push me. I see your wings have grown strong. Today I will teach you a lesson for being a useless hen that can't lay eggs. I dodged her hand to the side, causing LW Swan to lose her balance and almost fall to the ground. Guing hurriedly studied her, then turned to glare at me viciously. Jiang Shuyan, have you had enough trouble? My mother is old. If you dare hurt her, I won't spare you. She struck first. I was just defending myself. I pulled out my phone and waved it at them. I've recorded everything just now. Listen, if you dare to make another move, I'll call police right away and accuse you of intentional harm. Lud Swan glanced at the phone in my hand, a flicker of panic flashing in her eyes, but she quickly steadied herself and became firm. Go ahead and record. Am I afraid you won't? I'll tell you, Jiang Shuyan, even if you record it. So what? Jing Qin is the president of the Gu Group, and there are people in both the black and white worlds. Reporting to the police won't help. Really? I smiled. Then let's have a try. After speaking, I ignore them and walk straight toward the 2nd floor bedroom by Mingao. Seeing this, hurriedly followed and blocked the door, hands on her hips, arrogantly saying, Sister, you can't go in. This is mine in Jingxin's bedroom, and your things have already been thrown out by me. Throw it out. I raised an eyebrow. By Minga, you're gutsy. My things are valuable. If you dare to throw them away, I'll see you for intentionally damaging someone else's property. I pushed her away and walked into the bedroom. The sight in the bedroom made me more nauseated. My clothes were scattered all over the floor. There were intimate photos of Gu Jingqin and Bingao on the bedside table, and my skincare products had been replaced with Ba Minga's things. See that, Sister Bingao, followed in smugly saying, Jingqin has not loved you for a long time. He loves me, this bedroom, this villa, from now on, all mine. You should stop harboring such fantasies. I ignored her, bending down to start packing my things. The important documents and certificates were all tucked away in the innermost drawer. Fortunately, not thrown away by her. I packed things into the pre-prepared bags and turned to leave at that moment. Bai Mao suddenly rushed over, trying to grab the bag in my hand. You can't take these things away. These were all bought for you by Jingqin. Since you want a divorce, you should leave all of these behind. I sidestepped. She charged and missed, and she fell heavily to the ground. She paused for a moment, then let out a wail and shouted toward the door. Jingqin, Jingqin, big sister is bullying me. She pushed me, Gu Jingqin and Lu Swan hurried up. Lu Duan, seeing Bai Manga lying on the ground, was heartbroken and quickly helped her up, then turned to me and yelled, Jiang Shuyan, you vile woman. Mao is pregnant. How dare you push her? If anything happens to my grandson, I'll fight you to the death. Gu Jingxin also stared at me with anger. Jiang Shuyan, I didn't expect you to be such a vicious woman. Mao is pregnant with my child and you actually harmed her. I didn't push her. She fell over herself. I said calmly, pressing the camera button on my phone to capture by Mao falling to the ground. Moreover, I've recorded the entire incident. Whether I pushed her or not will become clear from the recording and video. Upon hearing that I had recorded and photographed the scene by Mao's crying stopped instantly. Her eyes filled with panic. Luduan also felt somewhat guilty, but still insisted. So what if you recorded it? Who knows if it's fabricated? Jingxin, you mustn't, he believed her. Gu Jingxin frowned, his gaze filled with suspicion. He probably hadn't expected me to remain so calm and to have recorded everything beforehand. I sneered coldly. Whether it's forged or not, once it reaches court, someone will determine the truth. Gu Jingqin, do you really think that just because this child is in Binge's womb and we don't know if it's hers, you can control me? You're too naive. What are you saying? Bai Mingao screamed. Of course, my child is Jing's Jiang Shuyan. Don TT, smear me here with your lies. Only you know the truth in your own heart. I didn't want to argue with them anymore. I grabbed the bag and headed toward the door. I finished taking what's mine. From today onward, I won't set foot in this villa again. 3 days from now is the trial. I hope you all arrive on time. Then you'll know what the price of infidelity is. Jiang Shuyan, don't be so arrogant. Gu Jingqin shouted behind me, even if you have recordings. So what? Without a lawyer, you can't win the case anyway. I paused a moment, looked back at him, and a mysterious smile curled at the corner of my mouth. Whether you can win or not, you'll know in 3 days. By the way, one reminder, don't think about destroying the evidence, and don't think about threatening me. Otherwise, the consequences will be more than you can bear. After finishing speaking, I walked straight down the stairs, pushed open the villa's front door, and stepped outside. I could hear Luduan and Bangao cursing behind me along with Gu Jing's furious roars. But I didn't care at all. Sitting in the taxi, I took out my phone, played the recording from just now, and looked again at the photos I had taken. These are ironclad evidence of Gu Jingqin's cheating within his marriage. With these, even without a lawyer, I could ruin him. But I wasn't done yet. Gu Jingqin and Lud Swan want to crush me with the Gwen. I would start with Binga, a woman who can't even be sure who the father of her child is. If that gets exposed, the Gu family and the Gu will lose face. I opened my phone and found a private detective's contact information and sent him a message. Investigate Bai Minga's every detail, especially the people she has recently been involved with and the authenticity of her pregnancy. The faster the better. Money is no object. Not long after the information was sent, the other side replied, Okay, Ms. Jiang, we will complete the task. We will get back to you tomorrow. I tucked away my phone and looked out at the rapidly passing night scenery. Gu Jingqin Lud Swan by Mingao. Your good days are over. 3 days from now in court, I will not only divorce Gu Jingqin, but also make him pay the deserved price in my Jiang Xian's marriage. I will make the decisions myself. Anyone who dares block my path, I will kick aside. So what if it's the Gu group? In my eyes, they are nothing but common geese and dogs. The taxi stopped in front of an apartment building under my name. I bought this before I got married. Ginch has never known about it. I walked into the apartment, turned on the lights, and the warm illumination lit up the whole room. It's not grand, but it makes me feel incredibly at ease. I put the bag on the table, poured myself a glass of water after taking a sip. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. The call was quickly answered, and a respectful voice came from the other end. Judge Jiang, do you have any instructions? Help me arrange it. The divorce case in 3 days. I want to preside over it personally. I spoke calmly. Okay, Judge Jiang, I will arrange it right away. 3 days flew by in an instant. On the day of the hearing, It was barely dawn when I got out of bed. I opened the wardrobe, and a sharp black, judicial robe hung inside, the national emblem on the chest shining brilliantly in the morning light. This is my true identity. Jiang Shuyan, the youngest first-level judge at the Municipal Intermediate People's Court, specializing in marriage and family as well as economic crime cases. After a simple wash, I donned the ceremonial robe and straightened the collar in front of the mirror. The woman in the reflection had a steady gaze and a commanding presence. She was no longer the Guai Tai who used to bow and scrape for the Gu family driving to the courthouse. My colleague saw me and greeted me respectfully. Judge Jiang, good morning. I nodded slightly and walked straight toward the courtroom. As I passed the holding area, I deliberately slowed my pace and spotted Guing Qin and his group from afar. He was dressed in an expensive bespoke suit with 5 or 6 leather-clad lawyers walking beside him, clearly a meticulously assembled legal team. Lud Swang was supporting Bai Mingo's arm. Bai Mao wore a pink dress, covering her belly with her hand. Looking delicate and helpless, the two sat on chairs, their faces filled with disdain as they discussed something. Mom, you can rest assured today. Jiang Shu Yan definitely won't dare to come. Even if she shows up, without a lawyer, she can only be at our mercy. Bai Minga said softly. Lud Swan patted her hand and said proudly, of course, with Jingqin having spoken up. Which lawyer would dare to help her? I think she won't dare to come today. And if she does, she'll only be humiliating herself after the trial ends. I wonder what face she will have to mention divorce. Ginch stood to the side, a slight frown on his brow, not sure what he was thinking. Perhaps my composure the other day unsettled him, or perhaps he felt certain of victory. In short, his expression was now more solemn than before. I ignored them, turning and walking into the back of the courtroom with 10 minutes until the trial began. I organized a court records and confirmed that all procedures were in order. Judge Jiang, everything is ready. We can begin the trial. The clerk entered respectfully. I nod my head. Okay, start. As the clerk calls, court is now in session. The doors of the courtroom are pushed open. I step forward in high heels toward the judge's bench. The sound of high heels striking the floor is especially clear in the quiet courtroom, and each step seems to press on Guing Qin and the others' hearts. Guing Qin and the others had just entered the courtroom, and upon hearing the sound, looked up instinctively when they saw me in judicial robes. Their expressions stiffened in an instant, as if under a petrifying spell. Unmoving Lud Swan's eyes widened. She pointed at me, her mouth opened wide enough to fit an egg, speechless for a long moment. Bai Mao's previously gentle expression vanished in an instant, replaced by sheer astonishment and fear, and the hand covering her stomach unconsciously lowered, the most exaggerated as Gu Jingqin. He originally had a touch of arrogance in his eyes, but the moment he saw me, his pupils suddenly narrowed, his gaze filled with disbelief, his mouth slightly open, and his body involuntarily leaned back a step. The lawyers behind him were also stunned, looking at me, I looking at you, their faces full of doubt. I walked to the judge's bench, sat down slowly, picked up the gavel on the desk, gently tapped it, and spoke with authority. The court is now in session. This case is a divorce dispute where the plaintiff, Jiang Shuyan, sues the defendant, Gu Jingqin, for divorce. The presiding judge for this case is Jiang Shuyan, and the court clerk is Jiang Men, who will record the proceedings. Jiang Zhang Shuyan Gu Jingqin finally reacted, his voice trembling. You, how are you here? How can you be a judge? I looked up at him, my gaze icy, my tone calm, defended Gu Jingqin. Please pay attention to court decorum during the trial. You may not speak without permission. I don't care about any court discipline. Guing stepped forward emotionally, pointing at me. Who on earth are you? You're not Jiang Shuyan. How could Jiang Shuyan be a judge? Are you deliberately pretending to be her? Defendant Gu Jingqin, please watch your words and actions. I tapped the gavel again, raising my voice a notch. The identity of this judge is real and valid with a court badge and appointment documents as proof. If you have any objection to the identity of this judge, you may submit a written objection to this court after the trial. But now you must obey court discipline. Otherwise, I will take compulsory measures against you for contempt of court before I finish speaking." 2 bailiffs stepped up beside Gu Jingqin, giving him a stern look. Gu Jingqin was deterred by the bailiff's aura, stepped back, but his eyes remained full of doubt and shock. Lu Duan also reacted at this moment. She broke away from the lawyer beside her and rushed to the judge's bench, yelling at me, "You imposter! You're not Zhang Shuyan at all. How could our Jun's wife be a judge? Are you trying to harm our Jing on purpose? I tell you, Arga family is not to be trifled with. Bailiffs, take the person who disturbs court order out," I said without hesitation. 2 bailiffs immediately stepped forward, pinning Ludswan's arms and about to drag her outside. Luduan fought desperately, shouting, "Let me go! I will sue you! I will sue this liar! Jingqin, help me! Jingqin!" Guing looked at Lu Swan being dragged out, his face alternating between pale and white. He finally realized that the woman before him was really Zhang Shuyan, really the presiding judge of this case. All of his previous arrogance and confidence dissolved at this moment. White Mano stood to the side, trembling with fear. She never expected that the useless Mrs. Gu she had bullied all along would actually be a judge wielding great power. Thinking about how she had previously provoked and humiliated Zhang Shu Yan at the Gu family, she became so scared that her legs went weak, nearly collapsing to the ground. The legal team behind Gu Jingqin was also flustered. They had initially thought it would be an easily winnable case. After all, the other side had no lawyers and the Gu group wielded immense power, but they never expected that the other party would actually be the presiding judge himself. This completely nullified all the defense strategies they had prepared. I swept a cold gaze over everyone present, finally resting it on Gu Jingshan. Defendant Gu Jingshan now due. You agreed to continue the trial. Gu Jingshan took a deep breath, trying to steady his emotions. He knew that now there was no way out. If he refused to continue the trial, he would be deemed to have abandoned his right to defense, and the court would issue a default judgment. Moreover, he wanted to understand exactly why Zhang Shu Yan was doing this. "I agree to continue the trial," Gingin said through gritted teeth, his eyes filled with venom. "Okay," I nodded, then looked at the clerk and said, "Clerk recorded in the case file. Now the trial officially begins. First, the plaintiff shall present the lawsuit's claims and the facts and reasons." I said. I picked up the complaint from the table and read aloud in a clear voice. Plaintiff Zhang Shuyan sues defendant Gu Jingqin for divorce. Claimed relief 1. To order the dissolution of the marriage between plaintiff and defendant. 2. To grant the plaintiff ownership of a premarital apartment located in the city center. 3. 2. Order the defendant to pay the plaintiff 1 million yuan in damages for mental distress. 4. That the defendant bear the costs of this litigation. Facts and reasons. The plaintiff and the defendant registered their marriage 3 years ago. In the early years of the marriage, their relationship was reasonably good, but since a year ago, the defendant Gu Jingqin had an affair with a third party, Binggao, maintaining long-term improper relations with Bang Yao, and brought by Man Gao into the marital home where the plaintiff and defendant resided together, severely harming the plaintiff's feelings. The defendant's mother, Lud Swan, not only failed to stop it, but also condoned the defendant's infidelity, repeatedly abusing and harassing the plaintiff. The plaintiff had several communications with the defendant about divorce, but the defendant repeatedly threatened with the Gu Group's power and forbade all lawyers from taking the plaintiff's divorce case, attempting to force the plaintiff to compromise to safeguard the plaintiff's legitimate rights and interests. She has filed this lawsuit with this court, requesting the court to lawfully support all of the plaintiff's claims. After finishing the lawsuit, I placed the complaint on the desk and looked at Gu Jingqin. Defended Gu Jingqin regarding the plaintiff's claims and the facts and reasons. Do you have any objections? Ginqin's face turned grim. He was silent for a long time before he spoke. I do not agree to divorce. The relationship between me and the plaintiff has not broken down. And the so-called marital infidelity is all the plaintiff's one-sided words, with no evidence whatsoever. No evidence. I sneered, picked up the USB drive on the desk, and handed it to the clerk. Clerk, play this evidence in court. The clerk took the USB drive and plugged it into the computer. Soon, the big screen in the courtroom began to play the recording and video I had shot that day at Goose Villa. The insults from Luduan to me, by Mingao admitting she was wearing my clothes, and the footage of Binga herself rushing in and falling over. All of it was plainly displayed before everyone. Gewing looked at the content on the big screen, his expression growing paler. The lawyers behind him also bowed their heads, afraid to speak. Bai Mingao trembled all over with fear, wishing she could find a crack to crawl into. After the video finished playing, I looked at Gu Jingqin and spoke in a cold tone. Defendant Gu Jingqin, do you still say the plaintiff has no evidence? These recordings and videos were all made in the presence of you, in a third party by Mingao and your mother, Luduan. They are real and valid with no signs of forgery. Moreover, these pieces of evidence are enough to prove your infidelity during marriage, as well as your and your mother's insults and harassment toward the plaintiff. Ginch opened his mouth, trying to argue, but could not say a word. He knew that in the face of irrefutable evidence, any defense would be fuel. I continued. Additionally, the plaintiff has submitted to this court intimate photos of the defendant Ginkin with the third party by Mingao in hotels, restaurants, and other places, as well as transfer records showing the defendant purchasing property and vehicles for the third party by Mingao. All of these pieces of evidence are enough to prove the defendant's infidelity during marriage. I signaled the clerk to distribute copies of the photos and transfer records to Gu Jingqin and his legal team. Gu Jingqin picked up the photos, looking at the intimate scenes of himself with Bingao on them. His hands trembled with anger. He never would have imagined that Jiang Suyan had collected so much evidence. Defendant, do you have any objections to these pieces of evidence? I asked. Gu Jingqin fell silent. He knew he had already lost completely, but he still wouldn't give up. He looked up at me, his gaze full of resentment. Jiang Shuyan, you've known all along that you are a judge, haven't you? From the very beginning. You've been calculating me. I'm calculating you. I smiled, a hint of sarcasm in my laughter. Gu Jingqin, you were the first to commit adultery within your marriage. You were the first to use the Gu Group's power to threaten me. You and your mother were the first to bully me. Everything I did was only to protect my own legitimate rights. If you hadn't forced me, I wouldn't have come to this step. Yu Gingqin was pressed into silence by my rebuke, couldn't catch his breath, nearly fainted. I watched his embarrassed state with no trace of sympathy. All of this was of his own making. Now, this judge pronounces that given the plaintiff's evidence is indeed sufficient to prove that the defendant Gu Jingqin was involved in an extramarital affair, seriously harmed the marital relationship, and that the marital relationship has indeed broken down. Therefore, regarding the plaintiff's request to divorce the defendant, this court supports. I raised the gavel ready to strike at that moment. Lud Swan, who had been escorted out by the baifs, suddenly broke free from her restraints, rushed into the courtroom and shouted at me. I do not agree. I absolutely do not agree. You wicked woman. You just want to monopolize our Gu family's assets. Jingqin, you must not let her succeed. I watched Lud Swan, who disrupted the court again, and my gaze grew utterly cold. It seems that unless she gets a lesson, she will not behave herself. When Luduan charged in again to make trouble, I no longer gave her any chance to talk nonsense. I picked up the gavel and struck hard, my voice as cold as ice. Lud Swan, you have twice disrupted the court, ignored judicial authority, and you now stand accused of contempt of court. Baifs, detain her immediately and send her to the Judicial Detention Center for 15 days of confinement. What detention? Lud Swan was stunned in an instant. Then she cried even louder, struggling with her hands and feet. You can't detain me. I am the elder madam of the Gu Group. If you lay a finger on me, our Gu family won't let you off. Jing Chan, save me quickly. At this moment, Gu Jingqin was also anxious. He stepped forward, intending to stop the baifs, but was blocked by two other baifs. His eyes reened as he shouted, "Jiang Shuyan, how dare you detain my mother? Don't go too far, too much." I raised my eyes to him, my gaze full of sarcasm. Defendant Gu Juanchang'an. Insulting the court is a clearly illegal act defined by law. Your mother has been repeatedly taught, but unchanged. She deserves punishment. If you also want to disrupt the court's order, our court won't hesitate to detain you as well. My words carried a stern authority. Gu Juancheng was scared into stopping in his tracks, watching as the bailiffs dragged Luan, who was still crying and cursing, out of the courtroom. The team of lawyers behind him did not even dare to utter a sound. Heads bowed, afraid to light a fuse by Min Gao stood in place, trembles all over as if sifted, eyes filled with fear. She never expected that the usually unquestioned old madam of the Gu family would be detained on the spot. She was even more afraid that she herself would be the next to be dealt with. I swept a glance over everyone present, seeing that no one dared to move. I spoke slowly. Now the trial continues. The judge has preliminarily determined that the relationship between the original defendants has indeed broken down, and the plaintiff's request for divorce is supported. Next, regarding the plaintiff's other claims, our court will conduct a trial one by one. I picked up the materials on the table and continued regarding the plaintiff's request for an order that the apartment purchased before the marriage located in the city center belonged to the plaintiff. This court has found that the apartment was fully paid for by the plaintiff Jiang Shuyan before the marriage, and the property registration is in the plaintiff's name. According to Article 1063 of the Civil Code of the People's Republic of China, this property is the plaintiff's personal property and has nothing to do with the defendant. Therefore, for this request, this court will grant support. Guing Qin, upon hearing this, jumped up in a hurry. No, although that apartment was bought by her before the marriage, I also paid for renovations after the marriage. Why should it all belong to her? You defendant Gu Jingqin, do you have evidence proving that you funded the renovations? I looked at him, calm tone. If you have relevant transfer records, renovation contracts, or other evidence, you can submit them to this court. But up to now, this court has not received any relevant evidence from you. Therefore, your claim is not established. Gu Jingqin opened his mouth, unable to say anything for a long time during the renovation back then. He thought that, since they were a married couple, the money was shared and he didn't consider keeping evidence. Now, being confronted by me, he realized how big a mistake he had made. I ignored his embarrassment and continued regarding the plaintiff's claim that the defendant should pay 1 million yuan in mental damages. After investigation, the defendant Gu Jiang had an extramarital affair with a third party by Min Gao and brought the third party into the marital home. This conduct severely violated the duty of marital fidelity and caused the plaintiff significant mental harm. According to Article 1091 of the Civil Code of the People's Republic of China, the plaintiff has the right to request damages considering the defendant's fault degree, economic ability, and local living standards. This court believes that the plaintiff's claim for 1 million yuan in mental damages is reasonable and lawful, and has granted 1 million yuan. Guing nearly jumped, his face turning ashen. Jiang Shuyan, you're asking for a lion's share. Why should I give you 1 million yuan just because you cheated during our marriage? You hurt my feelings. I said coldly, if you object to the amount of compensation, you may appeal to the next higher people's court within the statutory appeal period, but before this judgment takes effect, you must comply with the terms of this judgment. At this moment, a lawyer behind Gu Jingqin could not hold back any longer and stepped forward to bow to me, saying, Your Honor, we believe there is a procedural violation in this case. The plaintiff, Jiang Shuan, also serves as the chief judge in this trial, which creates a conflict of interest. The plaintiff and the judge are the same person, which does not comply with the relevant provisions of recusal. Therefore, we request to suspend the proceedings and replace the presiding judge. I had long anticipated that they would use this to make trouble, and without the slightest sign of panic on my face, I calmly said, Lawyer, the objections you raised have already been reviewed by this court in advance. According to Article 47 of the Civil Procedure Law of the People's Republic of China, circumstances requiring recusal include when the judge is a party to the case or a close relative of a party or authorized representative, having a beneficial or adverse interest in the case, or having other relationships with the parties or their legal representatives that may affect the fair trial of the case. In this case, although I am the plaintiff, during the proceedings, I strictly followed the statutory procedures and upheld the principles of impartiality and fairness. There is no circumstance that requires recusal. I paused and continued. Furthermore, before the court session, this court had informed the defendant of the identity of this judge, and the defendant did not file a recusal application within the statutory time limit. Therefore, your objection is unfounded and the case will continue to be tried. That lawyer was left speechless by my rebuke and could only retreat in a dejected manner. Gwyn's gaze toward his team of lawyers showed increasing helplessness, and his expression grew more and more desperate. I looked at him and continued, regarding the litigation costs of this case. According to Article 29 of the measures for the payment of litigation fees, the litigation costs shall be borne by the losing party. In this case, the defendant Gwyn is the losing party. Therefore, the defendant Gwyn Jin shall bear the litigation costs of this case. Now, this court announces the final judgment of this case. 1. The plaintiff Jiang Shu Yan is granted a divorce from the defendant Gu Jingqin. 2. All of the plaintiff Jiang Xian's premarital apartment located in the city center shall belong to the plaintiff Jiang Shu Yan. 3. The defendant Gu Jingqin shall pay the plaintiff Jiang Shu Yan 1 million rindia as compensation for mental damages within 15 days from the effective date of this judgment. 4. The litigation costs of this case amount to RMB 5,000 to be borne by the defendant Gu Jingqin. I raised the gavel and struck 3 heavy blows. It sounds solemn. This judgment is pronounced in court today. The judgment documents will be served on the parties within 5 days. If you are dissatisfied with this judgment, you may submit an appeal to this court within 15 days from the service of the judgment, and you must submit copies equal to the number of opposing parties, appealing to the Provincial High People's Court. Now court is adjourned. As the gavel fell, the trial officially ended. I stood up, tidied my robe, and turned to leave the courtroom. Jiang Shu Yan, stop right there. Guing charged forward, blocked by the guards. His eyes were red like a raging animal, and he shouted at me, "You be **TCH. You intentionally schemed against me. I won't spare you. I will appeal. I will definitely appeal." I stopped in my tracks and glanced back at him. My eyes were icy and my voice was calm. "You have the right to appeal. But I can tell you clearly that even if you appeal to the provincial higher court or even the Supreme Court, the outcome will not change because the fact of your infidelity during marriage is clear. The evidence is solid and no one can help you." After finishing speaking, I paid him no more attention and walked straight out of the courtroom. Behind me, I could hear Ginchin's furious roars and Ba Minga's strained cries, but I paid them no heed at all. Leaving the courtroom, colleagues swarmed around, smiling and saying, "Judge Jiang, you're amazing. That trial just now was so satisfying to watch. Yeah, Judge Jiang, that Gu Jingqin and his mother are too arrogant. It's fortunate that you've put them in their place and tamed them." I smiled and said, "This is all what I should do. Safeguarding the legitimate rights and interests of the parties involved in upholding judicial fairness are the duties of us judges." Back in the office, I had just sat down when my phone rang. It was a private detective calling. I pressed the answer button, and the detective's voice came through. "Miss Jiang, the details you asked me to look into about Bingao. I found out this by Mingao is not some pure and virtuous girl at all. She has been involved with several wealthy men before, all by deceiving them for money. And the child in her belly isn't Gujing at all." "Oh," I raised an eyebrow. "Tell me in detail." "Here's the thing," the detective continued. Mao had dated a rich second generation named Wang Hao before meeting Guju and Chang. They were together for more than 6 months. Later, Wang Hao discovered she was involved with other men as well and broke up with her. And the time by Min Gao was pregnant happened to be during her time with Wang Hao. I also found records of her going to the hospital for a checkup, and the pregnancy date on those records doesn't match the time she was with Guju and Chong. I curled the corner of my mouth into a cold smile as expected. This by Ming Yao wasn't a good person. Ginang thought he had found a treasure, but in the end he ended up raising someone else's child. Very well, I said. Send me all the evidence you found. Also help me look into the financial status of the Gu Group, especially any issues like tax evasion, embezzlement, or the like. Okay, Ms. Zhang, I'll check right away, said the detective after hanging up the phone. I turned on the computer and received the evidence sent by the detective. It contained intimate photos of Bing Yao with different men, as well as her fraudulent transfer records and a hospital pregnancy test report. This evidence is enough to ruin Bingo's reputation. I have organized these pieces of evidence and saved them in a folder. Isn't Gu Jingqin planning to appeal? It doesn't matter. I have plenty of ways to make him lose more badly. This woman by Min Gao also deserves to pay for what she has done. As for the Gu Group, since Gu Hongyuan and Gu Jingqin both want to use the Gu's influence to pressure me, I will start with the Gu Group and completely destroy their foundation by then. Even if Gu Jingqin wants to appeal, he probably won't have the energy or the funds. Just as I finished organizing by Minjia's black materials, my office phone rang. The caller ID showed a number without a name, but I could tell at a glance who was calling. The father of Gu Jingqin, Gu Hongyuan. I pressed the answer button, and a deep, authoritative voice came through immediately. On the other end, it was Gu Hongyuan himself. Zhang Shuyan, this is Gu Hongyuan. Chairman Gu, what are your instructions? My tone was flat with no trace of emotion. Gu Hongyuan snorted coldly, his voice carrying clear threats. That's not something for guidance. I've heard you detain Swan Zhang Shuyan. Don't be too presumptuous. Swan is the madam of the Gu, and you, as a mere judge, dare to touch her. Release her at once, or I'll ensure you won't be able to stay in the court. Chairman Gu, when you speak, you must cite evidence and understand the law. I retorted fearlessly. Lud Swan disrupted court order twice, flouted judicial authority, and has already committed contempt of court. She should be detained according to the law. This is the court's normal law enforcement action and has nothing to do with my identity, much less anything like presumption. I don't care about what's lawful or unlawful. Gu Hongyuan's voice rose several tones. In this city, when I Gu Hongyuan speak, it's the rule. If you know what's right, release the person immediately and withdraw the divorce ruling against Jingqin, or else, not only you, but even the Zhang family behind you, I will make them pay. Another threat. I sneered inwardly. These Gur-named folks, besides using power and threats, have no other skills. Mr. Gu, I strongly advise you to retract your remarks, I said coldly. Threatening judges and undermining judicial fairness are illegal acts. As for my family, there's no need for you to concern yourself with them. If you dare touch even a single member of the Zhang family, I guarantee you'll regret it. Dare you talk to me like this? Gu Hongyuan clearly didn't expect me to be so tough, his tone filled with disbelief. Zhang Shuyan, do you think you're impressive just because you're a judge? I tell you, the power of the Gu Group is far beyond your imagination. If you insist on opposing the Gu family, the one who will end up losing is only yourself. Really? I smiled. Then we will wait and see. Chairman Gu, if you call just to threaten me, I'll hang up now. I have a lot of work to do and no time to waste here with you. Yu Gu Hongyuan was too angry to speak properly, and after a long time, he snapped. Fine. Very good. Zhang Shuyan, you just wait. After saying that, he hung up the phone directly. I set down the receiver, my face without the slightest change. Did Gu Hongyuan think he could scare me this way? Purely wishful thinking. Not long after, colleagues at the detention center called me, their tone carrying a hint of helplessness. Judge Zhang that Lud Swan is still unruly in the detention center, shouting and cursing you and the court staff, and even says she will have her husband Go Hong Yuan come and smash our detention center, no matter how we persuade her. It's of no use. What do you think we should do? I had long expected that Lu Duan wouldn't behave herself. I said lightly, no need to persuade her if she dares to make trouble again. We'll handle her according to the rules. Confine her and let her reflect on herself. Tell her that in the detention center she must follow its rules. No one will indulge her bad habits. Okay, Judge Zhang, we know what to do, the colleague said, hanging up the phone. I continued sorting through Bailey Mingus scandals. Just as I finished sorting, my assistant knocked and walked in, looking solemn. Judge Zhang, you need to see this online. Someone is smearing you. I frowned, opened the computer, and the assistant had already opened the relevant web pages. I could see several unknown small websites and social media platforms publishing negative news about me with headlines each more sensational than the last. Shocking. Judge Zhang Shu Yayan of the City Intermediate Court is having an affair during marriage. Counter suing the husband for divorce. Abuse of power. Judge Zhang Shu Yayan uses her position to force the husband to leave with nothing. Calculating woman Zhang Shu Yan climbs to power through marriage, and after getting what she wants, she kicks her husband out. I clicked into one of the articles, and it was all inverted and distorted content, saying that I married Gu Jingqin only to obtain the Gu family's wealth. That after marriage, I not only failed to fulfill my willy duties, but even had an affair during the marriage. After Gu Jingqin discovered it, she actually used her judge status to force Ginqin to divorce and even demanded a huge compensation. The article also included a few photos of me having normal conversations with a male colleague, which were maliciously interpreted as intimate photos. No need to guess. This is definitely by Minga's doing. Ginkin is now overwhelmed with work and has no time for any of this. Only by Mingao to preserve her own position. Would think of such a despicable method to smear me and reverse public opinion. The assistant on the side was furious. Too much. How can these people invert black and white like this? Judge Zhang, let's quickly debunk the rumors. Calm down. I calmly closed the web page, a cold smile curving at the corner of my mouth. If she wants to play, I'll play with her to the end. This kind of petty smear won't have any real impact on me. Fortunately, I haven't found the right opportunity to expose her true colors yet, and she's delivering herself right to my doorstep. I pulled out my phone and sent a message to the private detective. Compile all of Bingo's black history into a complete dossier. Send it to major media outlets and social platforms. Then anonymously report her to the company she is currently with. Remember to emphasize the truth about her pregnancy. The detective replied promptly, Okay, Ms. Zhang, we'll make it happen. The assistant looked at my calm demeanor, puzzled, and asked, Judge Zhang, you trust the detective to handle this so easily. What if? No ifs. I cut her off. By Mingo's black history is solid. Once it's exposed, she's finished. Moreover, I've already had the detective find out where she is now. She works as an office clerk at a small company that values employees conduct the most as long as her involvement in a marital affair and deceiving others for money is publicized. The company will definitely fire her immediately. Just then, my phone rang. It was Guing calling. I hesitated for a moment, then pressed the answer button. Gu Jingxin's voice carried a touch of fatigue, and there was a barely noticeable tone of questioning. Zhang Shuyayan, are those online news about you true? Did you really cheat on your spouse? Gu Jingqin, do you think it's possible? I sneered. We've been married for 3 years. Do you not know what kind of person I am in your heart? Those news stories were all white. Mao deliberately smear me. The purpose is to protect herself. Is it dream Yao? Guing was a bit skeptical. Why would she do this? Why? I sneer. Of course. It's to make you believe her. To make you think I'm a bad woman, so you give up appealing. Even marry her, so she can legitimately become the young mistress of the Gu family. But Guji Chin, I advise you to focus on yourself first. Do you really think the child in Binge's belly is yours? I tell you that child is not yours at all. What did you say? Guji Chin's voice shot up by 8 tones, filled with shock. Don't talk nonsense. How could the child in Minga's belly not be mine? whether I'm talking nonsense or not. You can check for yourself. I spoke calmly before knowing you by Minga was with a rich second generation named Wang Hao. The time she got pregnant happened to be when she was with Wang Hao. I have her prenatal reports and intimate photos with Wang Hao. Do you want me to send them to you? Gui Chin fell silent. The phone conveyed his heavy breathing. I can imagine he must be crumbling right now. A man who would go to the ends to protect the woman who demanded a divorce turns out to be carrying someone else's child and treating him as a fool after a long time. Gyuing finally spoke with a hoarse voice. I don't believe it. I will go ask Mao myself. You go ask, I said with a cold smile. I believe she will give you a satisfying answer. But Gyuing Chin, let me remind you, Bai Mao is not only pregnant with someone else's child, she has also swindled a lot of people out of their money. If you still remain willfully ignorant, in the end, you will be left with nothing because she will have cheated you dry. After saying that, I hung up directly. I could guess that Gu Jingqin would definitely go to confront Binga. Now, this farce has only just begun. Sure enough, not long after, the detective texted me saying Bai Minga was blocked at home by Gu Jingqin, and they had a big argument. Bai Mingao initially refused to admit it until Gyuing produced some of the evidence I sent him. She panicked, cried, and begged Gu Jingqin for forgiveness. But this time, Ginch was really angry. Not only did he scold her, he also kicked her out. I look at the photos the detective sent. In the photo, Bai Mingao sits on the ground, closed, disheveled, crying while Gu Jing stands to the side with a face ashen, eyes full of anger and disgust. A satisfied smile curves at the corner of my mouth. Is this the result Bai Mao wanted? Serves her right. Meanwhile, Bingo's scandals were exposed as well on major media and social platforms. There were endless reports accusing Bai Mingao of intruding on others' marriages, embezzling money, and deceiving someone by bearing another's child to get married. Her ID number, home address, and workplace were all dug up by netizens. The company she worked for quickly issued a statement announcing Bai Minga's dismissal. For a while, Bai Mingao became a target. Everyone shouted down like a rat in the street. Netizens flooded her social accounts with insults, and some even blocked her at the building entrance to her residence. Bai Minga was so scared she dared not go outside and could only cower at home and in the detention center. Lu Duan, upon learning Bai Minga's true colors and that she had been detained for 15 days, was so angry that she fainted on the spot when she woke up. She no longer dared to cause trouble, obediently staying in the detention room with a pale face and a blank, unfocused gaze. I looked at all this with no trace of sympathy in my heart. This is all what they brought upon themselves. If Led Swan hadn't tolerated Gajincin's affair, hadn't insulted and taunted me, if Bingao hadn't pursued wealth, hadn't intruded into my marriage, hadn't tried to smear me, they wouldn't have come to this point. Having dealt with Bao and Lu Duan, it would be Gu Hongyuan and the Gu's turn next. Didn't Gu Hongyuan want to use the Gu group's influence to suppress me? I want to see what ability he has left to threaten me when the Gu group itself is in danger of collapse. I opened the computer and watched the preliminary financial investigation results the detective had just sent about the Gu group. The Gu group indeed has serious tax evasion problems, and it also involves embezzlement, unfair competition, and other illegal activities. These pieces of evidence are enough to completely bring down the Gu group. I organized these pieces of evidence and sent them to the Discipline Inspection Department and the tax authorities. Next, I just need to wait and enjoy the forthcoming show. After sending the evidence of the Gu group's illegal activities to the disciplinary inspection and tax departments, I stopped paying close attention and turned to handle other tasks at hand. But I didn't expect that Bai Mingao. This woman had already fallen to the level of a street rat. Yet, she still wouldn't give up and insisted on jumping out to invite disaster. This afternoon, I had just finished handling a case and was about to leave work when I received a call from the court security room. The security guard spoke with a hint of nervousness. Judge Zhang, downstairs. There is a woman named Bai Mingao bringing a group of reporters to block at the court entrance, saying she wants to confront you, claiming that you wronged her and forced her into a corner with no way out. What do you think we should do? by Min Gao and with reporters. I sneered. This woman knows how to gain sympathy. It's come to this, yet she still wants to invert black and white. Let her wait, I said in a calm tone. I'll go down right away. After hanging up the phone, I grabbed my coat and headed straight downstairs. Just as I stepped out of the courthouse gates, I was surrounded by a group of reporters, the camera shutters going click, 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 nonstop. Bai Mingao stood in the middle of the crowd, wearing tattered clothes, her hair disheveled, tears still on her face, looking utterly aggrieved. Seeing me come out, Bai Mingao rushed over, only to be stopped by a security guard. She struggled and shouted at me, Jiang Shuyan, you wicked woman, why did you wrong me? Why did you expose my business? You've ruined everything about me. I'm not going to let you off. The reporter saw this and started shoving microphones toward me, chattering all at once. Judge Jiang is what Mrs. B said. True. Did you really wrong her? Judge Jiang, what is the real feud between you and Mrs. Bai? Judge Jiang, there are rumors that Mrs. B is carrying Mr. Goose's child. Did you retaliate out of jealousy? I ignored the reporter's questions, fixing a cold, powerful gaze on Bai Minga. My voice was clear and authoritative. Bai Mingao, you say I wronged you. Then I must ask you, did you really intrude on my marriage with Gu Jingqin? Did you really deceive Wang Hao and several other men to take their money? Are you really carrying someone else's child and deceiving Gu Jingqin? As soon as I spoke, the reporters fell silent, all turning to look at Bing Yao. Bai Minga's face instantly turned deathly pale, her eyes filled with panic, her lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. Can you not talk anymore? I sneer, pulling out a stack of documents from my bag and handing them to the security guard beside me, telling him to distribute them to the reporters. These are all the evidence that you interfered in other people's marriages and swindled money from them. There are transfer records, chat records, and your pregnancy test reports. It clearly shows that the time you were pregnant does not match the time you were with Guju and Cheng at all. Each of these pieces of evidence is real and valid. Dare you say I'm framing you? The reporters took the materials and studied them carefully, their expressions growing increasingly surprised. After reading them, they immediately pointed their microphones at Bio and their tone became stern. Ms. Bai, is what Judge Jiang said true? Are these pieces of evidence real? Ms. Bai, why did you deceive Mr. Gu and the other men? Ms. Bai, you're pregnant with someone else's child to trap a marriage. Is it to covet the Gu family's wealth? Bai Maya was asked by the reporter until she was speechless, no longer able to pretend that distressed look. She crouched on the ground, covering her head with both hands, and burst into lab crying. No, it's not like that. It was Jiang Shuyan who framed me. She forged the evidence, fabricating evidence. I sneered Bai Mingao. You are so naive. This evidence has all been professionally identified as genuine and valid. If you think I forged evidence, you can sue me, but I remind you, falsely accusing a judge is also illegal, and you will bear legal responsibility. At that moment, a man suddenly stepped out from the crowd, pointing at Bai Mingao and shouted in anger, This woman is a scammer. I was cheated out of 50,000 yuan by her before. She said someone in her family was sick and needed money for surgery. I lent her the money, and she turned around and spent it on buying bags and clothes. With the first person stepping forward, more and more men stood up, all accusing Bai Mao of deceiving them out of their money. Some said they were cheated out of 100,000, some 200,000, and some even the down payment for a house. The reporters, seeing this, grew even more excited, continuously taking photos and asking Ban Gao and the victims questions. Bai Man Gao was completely flustered, stood up, tried to flee, but was surrounded by reporters and furious victims, and she simply couldn't get away. Hand her over to the police. This kind of swindler should be caught. Yes, put her in jail. The victims cried out in anger. I watched the chaotic scene before me, a cold smile curling at the corner of my mouth. By Minga, this is the consequence of your antics. Do you think bringing a reporter to make his scene can flip black and white and win sympathy? You overestimate yourself too much. It wasn't long before the police arrived. After understanding the situation and reviewing the relevant evidence, they took Bai away on the spot for suspected fraud and opened an investigation. Journalists followed the police to the police station, hoping to follow up on the subsequent report. The onlookers gradually dispersed, and I turned to head back to the court just after taking a couple of steps. I saw Ginshin's car, parked not far away. He was sitting in the car, his face dark, staring at me with a complex gaze, anger, reluctance, and a faint trace of remorse that was hard to miss. I ignored him and went straight to my own car. Just as I started the engine, Ginshin's car followed closely behind, staying right behind me. I frowned, sped up, hoping to shake him off, but he kept chasing, following all the way to the apartment building where I lived. I stopped my car, got out, walked over to his vehicle, and knocked on his window. Gu Jingqin rolled down the window and said grimly, "Zhang Gang Shuyan, do you really have to go this far? Ma has already been arrested by the police. Are you satisfied?" Served her right. I sneered. Gu Jingqin, it's all her own doing. What does it have to do with me? If she hadn't interrupted our marriage, hadn't duped others out of their money, would she be in this situation today? This is all her own karma. But she's pregnant with my child. Gu Jingqin yelled. Do you still think that child is yours? I sneered. Gu Jingqin, are you stupid? I told you long ago that that child isn't yours at all. The police have already investigated. White Minga's pregnancy timing happened to coincide with her being with Wang Hao. Moreover, she was involved with several men at the same time. Who knows whose child it is? Guing's face instantly turned deathly pale, and his eyes were filled with despair. He leaned back in the chair, covering his face with his hands, letting out a painful groan. I can imagine how shattered his mood must be right now. The woman he has devoted himself to protecting turned out to be a liar, and she is pregnant with someone else's child, treating him as a fool. Gingshan, we are already divorced. Bai Minga's matters have nothing to do with me. I spoke calmly. From now on, don't follow me anymore. There is no longer any connection between us. After I finished speaking, I turned and walked into the apartment building. Gu Jingqin did not come after me again. I could hear the sound of his car engine for a long time before it gradually faded away. I knew that this time he had truly collapsed. Back at the apartment, I had just sat down when my phone rang. It was a staff member from the Disciplinary Inspection Department. Judge Zhang, we have received the evidence you submitted about the Gu Group's illegal activities. After a preliminary investigation, the situation you reported is basically true. The Gu Group does indeed engage in serious tax evasion and embezzlement among other illegal acts. We have established a special investigation team and are conducting an in-depth probe into the Gu Group. Thank you for your support of our work. You're welcome. This is what I should do, I said after hanging up. I breathed a sigh of relief. The Gu Group's good days were finally coming to an end. Weren't Guang Yuan and the others planning to use the Gu Group's influence to suppress me? Now that he himself is having trouble, I want to see what other tricks he has left to threaten me. Not long after, the tax authorities also called me telling me that they had launched a tax investigation into the Gu Group, and the preliminary findings showed that the Gu Group owed tax evasion amounting to tens of millions of yuan. This figure was enough to push the Gu Group into a desperate situation. I turned on the computer and checked the financial news. Sure enough, there were already reports online about an investigation into the Gu Group. Although there hasn't been an official announcement yet, it has already caused a considerable uproar. The Gu Group stock price has also begun to fall. Although the decline is not large, it has already frightened many investors. I know this is only the beginning. It won't be long before the crimes of the Gu Group are fully exposed. At that time, the Gu Group's stock price will plummet. Investors will withdraw their funds en masse. Banks will come calling for debt, and the Gu Group will collapse entirely. After learning the news, Gu Hongyuan would surely be as anxious as ants on a hot pot. He might try to use connections to smooth things over or shift the assets elsewhere. But I've already prepared in advance and submitted the relevant evidence to the bank and the securities regulatory authorities, leaving him with nowhere to run. After news broke that the Gu group was being investigated. I knew Gu Hongyuan would come to settle the score with me. Sure enough, the moment I started work the next day, my office phone was blown up. This time his tone was no longer the previous threat, but filled with frantic rage and desperation. "Jiang Shuyan, is it you who did this?" Gu Hongyuan shouted into the phone. His voice, "You handed the Gu family's evidence to the discipline inspection and tax departments. Right, you ingrate. Our Gu family has treated you well, and you actually tried to harm us." I lean back in the chair, twirling the pen in my hand, and speak leisurely. "Chairman Gu, words must be supported by evidence. I'm just an ordinary judge. How could I possibly have the ability to investigate the Gu group? Moreover, whether the Gu group has committed illegal acts, you all know in your own hearts. What does it have to do with me? If not you, who else would dare? Gu Hongyuan really doesn't believe it. Besides you, no one would oppose our Gu family like this. Jiang Shuyan, I warn you, quickly retract those pieces of evidence, and then clearly explain to the disciplinary inspection and tax departments saying you are making false accusations, otherwise I'll ruin you and your entire Jiang family. It's the same set of threats again," I sneered. "Director Gu, are you getting senile? Making false accusations brings legal responsibility. Moreover, my Jiang family acts with integrity and stands tall. There's nothing good for you to smear. On the contrary, Gu family should think about how to handle the investigation." Gu Hongyuan was jolted speechless by me, and after a long moment, he said angrily, "Fine, very well, Jiang Shuyan, since you won't drink the offering, but will drink punishment wine. Don't blame me for being impolite. I tell you, even if something goes wrong with the Gu family, dealing with a mere judge like you is more than enough." After speaking, he directly hung up. I put down the pen, and the smile on my face gradually disappeared. I knew that Gu Hongyuan could say and do it. He would surely use the remaining power of the Gu family to strike back at me. Sure enough, not long after, trouble came. First, the court's leadership called me in for a talk, the tone carrying some reluctance. "Shuan, Chairman Gu of the Gu has reported to the higher-ups that you used your position to strike and retaliate against your ex-husband's family, which reflects very badly. The higher-ups want us to investigate this matter thoroughly. For now, please pause your current work and cooperate with the investigation. I know in my heart that it was Gu Hongyuan who did this behind the scenes. He wants to suspend me and strip me of my judge's status, so he can do whatever he wants." I looked at the leader, my tone firm. "Leader, I did not abuse my position to strike back at anyone. Ginch's infidelity in his marriage by Mao intruding into my marriage. These are all facts, and the evidence I submitted is real and valid. The Gu family group has illegal and irregular activities which have been confirmed by the disciplinary inspection and tax authorities. I have nothing to do with it. I request the organization to conduct a fair investigation and clear my name." The leader nodded. "I believe you are not that kind of person. But Chairman Gu is under a lot of pressure from that side, and we have no choice. Rest assured, we will investigate it quickly and clearly." As I left the leader's office and had just returned to my own office, I received a call from my mother. Her tone carried some worry. "Shuan, there's trouble at your dad's company. The bank just came by and said they want to recover the loan early, and someone has reported that your dad's company is operating illegally. The tax department is also auditing. Is Gu's family member Gu Hongyuan behind this?" Sure enough, Gu Hongyuan turned his spear toward my maternal family. I comforted my mother. "Mom, don't worry. My dad's company is fine. The banks and tax authorities won't find anything. This is definitely Guangyuan's doing. He just wants to force me to compromise. Tell Dad not to panic and to cooperate with the investigation. I'll find a way to handle it." I hung up the phone, and my gaze grew completely cold. "Guan, you actually dare to touch my family. You brought this on yourself." I had considered leaving a bit of leeway for the Gu family, but now it seems there is absolutely no need. I took out my phone and sent a message to the private detective. "Compile more detailed illegal evidence against the Gu group, especially evidence of Gu Hongyuan embezzling public funds and transferring company assets overseas. Send all of it to me. Also, Check if Guangyuan has any other scandals. The more detailed, the better. The detective replied quickly. Okay, Ms. Zhang, I have found some key evidence and will send it to you immediately. Meanwhile, Gu Hongyuan continues to pressure me. Not only did he suspend me to cooperate with the investigation, but he also used his connections to freeze several of my bank accounts and even spread rumors within the legal industry and the judicial system, saying that I accepted bribes and abused my power, which led many people who did not know the facts to misunderstand me. The assistant looked at me with a worried tone. Judge Jiang, the rumors outside are getting harsher and harsher. Would you like to come forward and clarify first? Also, your account is frozen. Will this affect your livelihood? Don't worry, I spoke calmly. Rumors end with the wise and the pure remain clear. My account is frozen, but I have other assets. It doesn't affect my life. Gu Hongyuan thinks this will force me to compromise. He is too naive. Just then, the detectives send over the organized evidence. I opened it and was astonished by its contents. Gu Hongyuan not only embezzled over 100 million yuan of public funds from the Gu Group to purchase properties and luxury goods overseas, but also secretly sold the Gu Group's core technology to competitors to reap huge profits. Even more outrageous, he is suspected of commercial bribery, giving enormous gifts to multiple government officials to obtain improper benefits. These pieces of evidence are even more critical than what I submitted before. If these are exposed, Gu Hongyuan will not only suffer a ruined reputation, but also face severe legal penalties, and the Gu Group will be irreparably ruined. I had no hesitation at all and immediately organized these pieces of evidence, sending them to the Discipline Inspection Department, the Tax Authority, the Securities Regulatory Commission, and major mainstream media. I want Gu Hongyuan's crimes to be exposed to the light for everyone to see that his so-called authority of the Gu Group is nothing but built on lawbreaking and crime. The day after the evidence was exposed, the whole city exploded with activity. The front-page headlines of major media were all about the illegal scandals involving Gu Hongyuan and the Gu Group. Shocking, Gu Group chairman Gu Hongyuan embezzled over 100 million yuan in public funds. Assets moved overseas. Gu Group suspected of commercial bribery. Several officials implicated Gu Hongyuan betrayed the company's core technology, plunging the Gu Group into a desperate situation. Once the news came out, Gu Group's stock price plummeted instantly, hitting the daily limit within less than half an hour after the market opened. Investors panicked and rushed to sell, creating chaos in the stock market. Banks were also first to act, freezing all accounts of the Gu Group and visiting to request repayment. The Gu Group's partners also terminated cooperation, one after another, fearing being implicated. After Gu Hongyuan learned the news, he fainted on the spot. When he woke up in the hospital and saw the news on newspapers and TV, his emotions spiraled out of control. He dashed the things in the ward, shouting, "Impossible! This is impossible! Jiang Shuyan, I will kill you!" Gu Jingqin also rushed to the hospital. Seeing his father in a frenzy and the devastation of the Gu Group, he completely collapsed. He knelt on the ground, covering his face with his hands, crying bitterly. He knew that the Gu Group was completely finished, and so was the Gu family. And on my side, the court's investigation has also yielded results. The organization conducted a detailed investigation and confirmed that I did not violate any rules or discipline. The so-called abusing my position to retaliate was completely a false accusation by Gu Hongyuan. The court not only reinstated my job, but also publicly cleared up the rumors and condemned Gu Hongyuan's defamatory conduct. My frozen accounts have all been unfrozen. My father's company, after investigation, proved there were no illegal business practices. The bank not only withdrew the demand to recall the loan early, but also proactively expressed willingness to continue cooperating. Gu Hongyuan's revenge not only failed to harm me in the slightest, but instead dragged himself and the Gu Group into an irretrievable abyss. This is the price he pays for threatening me and the price for his illegal crimes. I sat in the office looking at the sunlight outside the window. Feeling tranquil, the assistant walked in, smiling. Judge Jiang, wonderful. Now everyone knows you were wronged. And Gu Hongyuan and the Gu group have received their deserved punishment. I nodded. This is all because of their own doing. The sword of justice is broad and just, and any illegal or criminal act cannot escape legal punishment at that moment. My phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I hesitated for a moment, then pressed the answer key. A young man's voice came through on the phone with a hint of hesitation and guilt in his tone. May I ask if this is a mess? Jiang Shuyan. I am Gu Jing, Ran Guing's younger brother. I have something very important to tell you about the Gu group and my father, my brother. I know I was wrong. I want to make amends. I hope you can give me a chance. Gu Jing Ran. I paused. I don't have much impression of Guing's younger brother, only that he has been studying abroad and rarely returns to China. I didn't expect that at this moment he would actively contact me. I thought for a moment and said, Okay, tell me a place and we can meet to talk. After hanging up, a cold smile tugged at the corner of my mouth. Gu Jing Ran contacted me at this time saying he wanted to make amends. I don't know what intention is in his heart, but no matter what his purpose is, as long as it can lead to a harsher punishment for Gu Hongyuan and Gu Jingchen, I don't mind meeting him. I want to know what the second son of the Gu family who has been hiding abroad really wants to say to me. I arranged to meet Gu Jingran at a secluded cafe at 3:00 in the afternoon. The cafe wasn't crowded. Soothing light music flowed through the air, but it couldn't dispel the guard in my heart. After all, he is Guangyuan's son, Gu Jingchen's younger brother, a family member of my enemy. I arrived 5 minutes early and chose a corner seat by the window. Not long after I sat down, a young man in casual clothes with a clean, cultivated appearance walked in. He stood tall, and there were some similarities between his eyebrows and eyes in Gu Jingchen's, but his gaze lacked Gu Jingchen's arrogance and restlessness. Instead, it carried a bit of steadiness and weariness. Without a doubt, it was Guing Ran when Guing Ran saw me. His steps paused. Then he quickened his pace and sat across from me. He had just sat down when he stood up, cupping his hands to bow to me, his tone sincere. EMS Jiang, I'm sorry. I know all about what my older brother and my father did to you. On their behalf, I want to apologize to you. I lifted the lemonade on the table and took a small sip, speaking calmly. Mr. Gu, let's get straight to the point. What is it you want to say to me? Guing Ran sat up straight, a hint of guilt on his face. I know, saying sorry now is very weak. I was studying abroad all this time and didn't know much about what happened at home. Only when I returned this time did I learn that my father and my brother have done so many illegal and immoral things, harmfully to heaven and earth, especially my brother's infidelity. And my father, in order to protect the Gu family, even used his power to suppress you and your family. This is too much. How long have you been back? I asked. About a month ago, I came back, Jin Gong said. I originally planned to come back to help the family run the company, but as soon as I returned, I found that the Gu group was deeply admired in internal problems. My father and my brother had made the company a mess. I tried several times to persuade them to stop and put the company back on the right track, but they wouldn't listen to me at all, and they even scolded me, saying, I'm immature in ruining their good plans. He paused and continued. This time, the Gu group is under investigation. My father not only fails to reflect on his mistakes, but also shifts all the responsibility onto you and even frantically retaliates against you and your family. I can't stand it any longer. Our Gu family may be at fault, but we cannot continue to make the same mistakes. I want to make amends and help you expose their crimes, so they receive the punishment they deserve. Why are you helping me? I looked at him with a touch of scrutiny in my eyes. We have no close ties, and I am your brother's ex-wife, your father's enemy. Helping me benefits you nothing. On the contrary, you might be expelled from the Gu family, or even face retaliation from my father. And brother Gu Jing Ran forced a smile and said, I know, but I can't just stand by and watch them keep making mistakes. I studied abroad for many years and was educated in the rule of law. I know that any illegal and criminal action should be sanctioned. Moreover, What my father and brother have done seriously crossed my bottom line. I don't want to become someone who bears a bad reputation because of them. He took a file bag from his backpack, pushed it in front of me, and said, Mrs. Jang, in this are the internal corruption evidence I collected about the GU Group, along with detailed records of my father and my brother shifting company assets and engaging in insider trading. These are more detailed and crucial than what you had before. With this evidence, we can nail them to the pillar of shame. I opened the file bag and carefully looked through the materials inside. It contains a list of corrupt activities from the heads of various departments of the GU Group. Transfer records of profits skimmed from company projects by Gu Hongyuan and Gu Jingqin using their positions to hand projects to companies owned by their relatives. Evidence of insider trading and stock price manipulation in the stock market. Most importantly, there is a cooperation agreement between the GU Group and overseas criminal organizations involving smuggling, money laundering, and other serious illegal activities. After reading these materials, I was secretly shocked. I didn't expect the problems of the GU Group to be so serious, and that Gu Hongyuan and Gu Jingqin would be so audacious with this evidence. Even if they wanted to run, they wouldn't be able to. Are all of these pieces of evidence real? I looked up at Gu Jingran, speaking in a serious tone. They're all real. Gu Jingran said with certainty. Every piece of evidence has the original records and the signatures of the relevant personnel. Absolutely no fabrication to collect these. I spent an entire half-month and I almost got discovered by my father. I nodded and put the materials back into the file bag. I understand. Thank you for providing these pieces of evidence. Rest assured, I will hand them over to the relevant authorities so that your father and brother will receive the punishment they deserve. Gyuing Ran breathed a sigh of relief, a trace of consolation on his face. That's good. As long as they are punished, everything I did will be worth it. However, I'm curious. I looked at him. Aren't you afraid that after I expose this evidence, you'll be implicated as well? After all, you're one of Goose's people. Gu Jing Ran shook his head. I'm not afraid. I hold no significant position at the GU Group, nor have I engaged in any illegal activities. These pieces of evidence were all voluntarily collected by me and handed over to you. The relevant authorities will conduct a thorough investigation. Moreover, I have already decided that once this matter is over, I will leave this city and return abroad, never to come back. I can understand his thoughts, having gone through all this. He certainly doesn't want any more involvement with the Gu family. I respect your decision. I said, rest assured, I will protect your safety and won't let you suffer retaliation from my father and brother. Gyuing nodded, stood up. Ms. Jang, I've handed the evidence to you. My task is done. I won't trouble you any further. I hope justice will be served soon. Wait, I called out to him. Where are your father and brother now? Have they shown any unusual behavior? Gudrun thought for a moment and said, My father is still in the hospital in a very unstable emotional state and has been talking about taking revenge on you. My brother is now staying at the hospital all day, going around to network with people, trying to move the GU Group's assets overseas and run away. However, I've already blocked their channels to move assets in advance, so they shouldn't be able to run now. Well, I understand, I said. Gudrun bowed to me again, then turned to leave the cafe. Watching his departing silhouette, I felt a multitude of emotions on the same Gu. The gap between Gudrun and Gu Jingqin was so wide. One could discern right from wrong and was willing to take responsibility. The other could not distinguish right from wrong, aiding the wicked. I picked up the briefcase and stood up to leave the cafe. Now I held all the illegal evidence against the GU Group in my hands, and it was time to administer the final settlement to Gu Hongyuan and Gu Jingqin. Back at the apartment, I immediately organized the evidence provided by Gueran and put it together with what I had previously. Then I contacted the Disciplinary Inspection Department, the Tax Department, the Public Security Department, and the Customs Department separately, submitting all the evidence to them. At the same time, I anonymously sent some of the evidence to major mainstream media outlets so that the crimes of the GU Group would be fully exposed in the light of day. After all this, I leaned back in the chair and let out a long sigh. Next, I just needed to wait and watch the drama. Gu Hongyuan and Gu Jingqin, your end has come as expected. It didn't take long for major media outlets to report that the Gu Group cooperated with overseas criminal networks involving smuggling, money laundering, and other serious illegal activities. Once this news came out, the whole society was shocked. People had previously thought the Gu Group only had issues like tax evasion and embezzlement, not realizing it involved such serious crimes. Public anger was ignited in an instant with demands that the relevant departments harshly punish the heads of the Gu Group. The government departments also attached great importance and immediately established a joint investigation team to conduct a comprehensive investigation into the Gu Group. Guaman in the hospital lost control of his emotions again after seeing the news, and a brain hemorrhage occurred on the spot, sending him to the intensive care unit. After hearing the news, Gu Jingqin was completely panicked and wanted to pack up and run away. But as soon as he reached the airport, he was stopped by the police who had been waiting there for a long time. The police publicly presented an arrest warrant on the scene, accusing Gu Jingqin of multiple crimes, including smuggling, money laundering, tax evasion, and embezzlement, and took him into custody. The moment Gu Jingqin was handcuffed, his face turned as pale as paper, and his eyes were filled with despair and fear. He never expected that he would end up in such a situation. I sit in the office watching the news reports with not the slightest sympathy in my heart. This is all self-inflicted on their part. If only they had kept to themselves and followed the law and regulations from the start, they wouldn't have come to the present outcome. The assistant walked in and said with a smile, "Judge Zhang, fantastic news. Gu Jingqin has been arrested, and Gu Hongyuan has been admitted to the intensive care unit. The Gu is completely finished this time." I nodded. These are all the punishments they deserve. Justice may be late, but it will never be absent. At that moment, my phone rang. It was a staff member from the Discipline Inspection Department. "Judge Zhang, here's some good news. Based on the evidence you provided, we have arrested multiple government officials who have benefited the Goose Group, including several high-ranking officers. The case is currently under further investigation. Thank you for your strong support of our work." "You're welcome. This is what I should do," I said. News of Gu Jingqin's arrest spread, and the Gu Group fell into utter despair. The joint investigation team's progress was rapid, and the Gu Group's years of illegal activities were identified one by one. The evidence chain was complete and irrefutable. Before long, the court formally accepted the Gu Group's bankruptcy liquidation application. The once renowned Gu Group plummeted from glory to ruin within just a month. Its assets were frozen and auctioned off. Factories ceased operations. Employees were laid off, and even its former partners and influential associates severed ties with the family, fearing involvement in the scandal. The reputation of the Gu Group was utterly ruined by its father-son duo, Gu Hongyuan and Gu Jingqin Guangyuan in the hospital, who had been in the intensive care unit for half a month, finally woke up. But after waking, what awaited him was not the comfort of his family, but police handcuffs and a cold arrest warrant. It turns out that the joint investigation team in their inquiry found that Gu Hongyuan was not only the mastermind behind illegal and criminal activities of the Gu Group, but also the principal offender in multiple commercial crime cases with solid evidence. When the police placed the arrest warrant in front of Gu Hongyuan, this man who had once ruled the business world suddenly collapsed. He lay on the hospital bed, his eyes hollow, muttering incessantly, "No way, my Gu family, my everything, no matter how much remorse there is. It cannot undo the crimes he has committed because Gu Hongyuan's health has not fully recovered. The court allowed him to receive medical treatment outside custody, and he will face formal trial after his health improves. But his freedom has already been completely restricted. Police follow him wherever he goes, and the former glory and wealth are no longer his." Gwyn's trial proceeded as scheduled. In court, faced with conclusive evidence, he could no longer deny it. In the end, the court convicted him on multiple charges, including smuggling, money laundering, tax evasion, embezzlement of public funds, and other offenses. sentenced him to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole, stripped him of his political rights for life, and ordered the confiscation of all his personal property the moment he heard the verdict. Ewing collapsed on the defendant's chair, his eyes full of despair. He never expected that the identity and wealth he had once taken pride in would ultimately lead to such an ending. He finally understood that his arrogance and recklessness back then were all digging a pit for his own future. Lu Duan stayed in the detention center for 15 days, and after she came out, she found that the Gu family had completely collapsed. Her husband was arrested. Her son was sentenced. The Gu group went bankrupt and her own assets were frozen. But once proud, Mrs. Gu had become a homeless, pitiful wretch overnight. She tried to contact her former relatives and friends and ask for help, but everyone avoided her. Some even scoffed to her face. Lu Duan, weren't you quite arrogant back then? How did you end up in such a destitute state now? This is all your Gu family's punishment. Luden is at her wit's end, forced to wander the streets and survive by picking through garbage. The former wealth and luxury no longer exist. She often sits in front of the ruins of the Gu family villa, crying bitterly. But all of this is already beyond redemption. Bai Minga's trial also had a result. She was convicted of fraud and sentenced to 10 years in prison with a fine of 500,000 yuan. During the trial, she admitted to deceiving several men over many years, which involved multiple fraud cases. What is even more ironic is that while she was imprisoned by Mingao, overwhelmed with emotion, unexpectedly miscarried, the child she had used to deceive Gu Jingqin into trusting her and scheming to marry into the Gu family ultimately could not be kept for her. Perhaps this was a release, or perhaps it was heaven's punishment, and Gu Jing ran just as he said before. After handing over the evidence to me, packed his bags, left the city, and returned abroad. Before leaving, he sent me a message. Ms. Zhang, justice has been served, and I hope you will be happy in the future. I did not reply him, only silently, blessing him in my heart, hoping that he could start a brand new life abroad, away from the Gu family's conflicts. After resolving all matters with the Gu family, my life gradually returned to calm because I performed outstandingly in this case. I was rated by the court as an outstanding judge of the year, and I received a promotion to serve as the head of the civil trial department at the City Intermediate People's Court. At work, I worked even harder, carefully presiding over every case and safeguarding the legitimate rights and interests of each party. In life, I also gradually emerged from the shadows of the past, beginning to enjoy my own time. On weekends, I would invite friends to hike or watch movies. And at home, I would cook and read. Life was full and content. When my parents saw me pick myself up again, they were very happy, too. They often called me, urging me to take good care of myself. I would also go home often to visit them, keep them company in conversation and meals. And our family was harmonious and joyful. One day, while I was handling a case, I met a lawyer named Lu Xian. He was polite and elegant, highly professional, and performed exceptionally well in court. After the case ended, he proactively handed me a business card, smiling and saying, "Director Zhang, your performance in court was outstanding. I hope there will be an opportunity to work with you in the future." I took the business card and gave him a smile. "Thank you for the compliment, lawyer. Lu, if there's a chance in the future, I'm sure we'll collaborate later." Due to work, I had more contact with Lu Xian. I found that not only was he highly professional, but he was also very responsible, taking the people involved seriously and being meticulous about the work. Gradually, a few different feelings began to grow between us. Lu Xian, after learning about my past, showed no disdain at all. On the contrary, he cared for me even more. He would bring me a loving lunch when I was busy with work. He would chat with me to help me unwind when I was in a bad mood. And when I faced difficulties, he would be the first to step up and help me. Under Lu Xian's pursuit, I gradually opened my heart and accepted his feelings. We toured the city together, tasted all kinds of food, and planned our future life. Being with him, I felt an unprecedented happiness and stability. A year later, on a sunny afternoon, Lucien proposed to me at the cafe where we first met. He knelt on one knee, holding a diamond ring, and his eyes spoke sincerely. Xuan, meeting you is the greatest luck of my life. I know you've been hurt before, but I promise you I will love you and protect you with my whole life so that you will always be happy. Will you marry me? I looked into Lucien's sincere eyes, and tears couldn't help but fall. This time, they were tears of happiness. I nodded, choked up, and said, yes, delighted. Lucien slid the ring onto my finger, stood up, and pulled me into a tight kiss. The soft music in the cafe flowed gently, and sunlight streamed through the windows, warming us and making everything feel wonderful. I lean into Lucien's arms, feeling his warm embrace, and my heart is filled with happiness. I know that the past heartbreak has completely healed, and my life has opened a brand new chapter. The former Gu Jingqin, Lu Tuan by Ming Yao, and Gu Hongyuan have all paid the deserved price for their actions. And I, who too have finally shaken off the shadows of the past and found my own happiness. Justice may be late, but it will never be absent. Those who once harmed me were ultimately punished, and after going through all of this, I have become stronger and more mature. In the days to come, I will walk hand in hand with Lucien, facing every challenge in life together and creating a happy future that belongs to us. End of the entire story.